I lost my job and saw my credit limit at minus $8,400. Desperate, I called Mom. She answered softly, "Sorry, son, bad signal, we're on the island." I asked about the missing money. She said coldly, "It's your card, not my problem." And that's when I realized the problem. In minutes, I paused their bank access and adjusted every linked card. Then I dropped one screenshot in the family group chat. Their vacation collapsed in seconds. I lost my job on a Thursday morning. One minute I was answering emails. The next I was locked out of every internal system. No warning. Just a 15-minute Zoom call with HR, a generic budget cuts explanation, and a severance email that bounced when I tried to reply. I sat there staring at my screen, still in my pajamas, thinking, what now? Out of habit, I opened my banking app. Maybe I just needed to feel like something was still under control, that I still had something left. Then I saw it. Minus $8,427.19. Bright red. My credit card balance. Not just maxed out. Negative. I blinked. Refreshed. Same number. I scrolled through the transactions. Fast. My thumb stuttering with every swipe. Flights. Luxury Airbnb. Restaurant bills. Spa services. Island scooter rentals. I froze. It was all them. My parents had been sending photos all week. Cocktails at sunset, white sand beaches, some bougie hammock thing overlooking a volcano. The Canary Islands. And apparently, they'd taken my credit card with them. Without asking. Without warning. Just quietly bleeding me dry while I figured out how to pay rent next month. My hands were shaking when I hit call Mom. She picked up on the third ring. Wind in the background. Waves. Laughter. "Sorry, honey, bad signal, we're on the island." She said it like I should be jealous. I didn't speak. I just let the silence stretch. Then I asked slowly, "Did you use my card?" A pause. Then her voice changed, cold, flat. "It's your card, not my problem." And that's when I knew. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a misunderstanding or a favor they forgot to mention. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew I'd lost my job. I told them the day it happened. And they still flew first class on my name and ate seafood I couldn't afford in my own city. I sat in that silence for a long second, the realization settling like acid in my gut. Then I hung up. No yelling. No begging. I opened the banking app again. Paused all linked cards. Revoked every authorized user. Reset every password. Then I took a screenshot of the final transaction, Sunset Yacht Package, Playa Blanca, and dropped it in the family group chat. No caption. Just that. Read receipts rolled in one by one. First Mom, then Dad, then my sister, who had probably known too. Nobody replied. But within 5 minutes, the live from the island photos stopped posting. The thing you have to understand is, this wasn't the first time. That credit card? It had been in their hands for months. Quietly, casually, like I was just a secondary wallet with legs. It started last Christmas. Mom called me crying because the furnace was acting up and they didn't have the money for repairs. "We're barely making ends meet," she said. "Just a small loan. We'll pay you back in January." I wired them $2,000 the next day. In February, it was Dad's dental work. Then my sister called. Her car broke down and she had to get to her yoga retreat. $600. "Just put it on your card, please. I'll Venmo you next week." Nobody ever Venmoed. And every time I asked, it was some variation of, "Stop keeping score. Family helps family. You'll understand when you're a parent. You make good money. What's a few hundred?" I did make good money. Back then, I was in tech. A stable job, remote work, okay salary. Not rich, but enough to pay my bills and have something left. And I guess that was my mistake. I let them see it. I let them expect it. And I got used to being the reliable one. The one who'd figure it out. The guy who always picked up the tab. The guy who didn't need help, who didn't complain, even when I should have. When my sister lost her job at the wine bar and moved back in with our parents, I covered her phone bill for 6 months so she wouldn't lose her number. When Dad's transmission blew, I paid half. When Mom maxed out her card buying plane tickets for a wellness seminar, she asked me to transfer the balance just for one billing cycle. They always framed it as temporary. Always. But it wasn't. I never saw a dime come back. No repayment plans. No budgets. No apologies. Just more excuses. Then I started noticing the entitlement in their tone. "Can you move your payment date to the 15th? We need to book early for the resort. Be a sweetheart and grab dinner tonight. We forgot our wallets again." You can write it off, right? You work in tech. Why are you being weird about this? It's just money. They weren't borrowing. They were collecting. Like I owed them something for being born. And I'd love to say I stood up to them right away, that I cut them off cold the first time I felt used. But no, I didn't. Because guilt is a strong pull, especially when it's cooked at home. Every time I pulled back, they pushed harder. When I said I needed to start saving, my mom cried. Not subtle tears, movie tears. She said I was turning cold, that I'd changed since I got my remote job. That success made me selfish. When I tried to cancel my sister's Amazon access, she told me I was being abusive. Abusive because she couldn't use my Prime account to buy coconut milk and gel nail refills. But what really cracked me wasn't the money. It was when they forgot my birthday. Not forgot like, oops, we'll do something next weekend. I mean completely gone. Not a text. Not a call. Not even a meme. That same day, I got a receipt notification. Facial and couples massage, $298, charged to my card. They were literally getting foot rubs in Fuerteventura while I sat alone in my apartment reheating ramen. I remember just sitting there, phone in hand, and laughing. That weird kind of laugh you do when you're so angry, so stunned, so done, you can't even form words. Just noise. That's when it hit me. I wasn't their son. I wasn't their brother. I was their funding stream. And when I lost my job, when the AI software replaced my entire department and I got ghosted by HR, they didn't even check in. Not once. No, how are you holding up? No, you'll land on your feet. Just more silent withdrawals and resort selfies. I was spiraling financially, drowning in bills, rent, anxiety. Waking up at 3 a.m. with chest pain, checking balances, praying no new charges came in. And all the while, they were sipping sangrias under palm trees on my card. When I finally called mom and asked her about it, about the charges, about the balance, about the blatant betrayal, she didn't even blink. It's your card. Not my problem. No shame. No guilt. Just pure, smooth apathy. Like I was the annoying neighbor asking for my lawnmower back. I think I whispered, wow, and hung up. That was the moment. The moment I stopped seeing them as family. The moment I realized they're not going to stop. Not unless I stop them. And what I did next? Well, let's just say their vacation ended in under 60 seconds. After I hung up on mom, I didn't rage. I didn't scream or punch a wall or cry into a pillow. I opened my laptop, logged into every account with surgical precision, and I started cutting cords. First, I pulled up my credit card portal, paused every linked user, disabled every authorized purchase, switched to manual approval for all future charges. Then, my bank, unlinked all external accounts, deactivated the shared family wallet, froze the savings sub-account my parents had access to in emergencies, reset all passwords. Next stop, Apple Family Sharing. They loved mooching off my iCloud storage, using my Apple Music, watching movies I paid for. Not anymore. I removed every device tied to my ID, even Dad's crusty iPad that still had the plastic on the back. Then revoked their access to the shared calendar, where I'd politely entered final loan reminders and payment follow-ups they never acknowledged. Oh, and I yanked them from my Netflix. Yeah, I went full nuclear. And then came the final move. I screenshotted the most recent charge. Sunset Yacht Charter, Playa Blanca, $462. Big, bold, in bright red. Underneath it, I wrote just one sentence. You're officially cut off. Enjoy your last cocktail. Then I dropped it in the family group chat. No emoji, no drama, just that. It took 23 seconds for the read receipts to light up. Then chaos erupted. Dad, what is this? We're on vacation. You can't just cancel things mid-trip. Mom, this is vindictive and immature. We're stranded here. My sister, you're being dramatic. We needed a break. You knew that. I didn't respond. I just watched them spiral. At minute 3, another notification popped up. Card declined. Spa retreat balance. $189. Then another. Airbnb payment failed. Booking canceled. Then came the real panic. Mom again. The front desk says our room access is blocked. They're asking for a different card. Dad, are you serious right now? You're sabotaging your own family over a few charges. A few charges? I typed one line. Total charged since January. $8,423.72. That's not a few charges. That's my rent, my groceries, my future. Silence. Then Dad replied, "You could have just talked to us instead of humiliating everyone." That part made me laugh. Talk. Like the 12 times I asked for repayment and got ghosted? Like the time I brought up setting a limit and Mom said, "Stop being selfish"? Like the time I said I couldn't afford dinner and they mocked me for letting money control me? No, talking was over. This was enforcement. I muted the group chat and shut my laptop. And I'll admit, my hands were still shaking. My heart was pounding. The adrenaline was like a tidal wave crashing through my ribs. Because this wasn't just a tech move. This was rebellion. The first real no of my adult life. And it landed like a missile in the middle of their beachfront fantasy. Later that night, I checked my voicemail. 3 missed calls from Dad. One from Mom. A long, furious rant from my sister that started with, "You ruined everything," and ended with, "We were counting on you." Yeah, that was the problem. They weren't visiting family. They were draining me like a bank account with a face. I checked one last notification. New login attempt detected, denied. Location, Spain. Nice try, Dad. I went to bed smiling. For once, the debt collectors were them. They left the island 2 days later. Coach tickets. Budget airline. No checked bags. I didn't hear a word from them during the flight. But I did get a single notification that made me grin. Refund issued. Airbnb cancellation. $1,287. Too late for them to rebook. Too early to extend their trip. Perfectly timed to leave them in the lurch. When they landed, the silence was deafening. Not a text. Not a call. Not even a guilt trap. "We're disappointed in you" message. That's how I knew I'd hit a nerve. The control they'd always had over me, through guilt, obligation, performance, was gone. It had taken a layoff and a drained credit line to get me to this point. But finally, they weren't holding the puppet strings anymore. And me? I started breathing differently. I unsubscribed from their emotional economy like I was quitting a toxic job, which, in many ways, I was. I got up the next morning, made myself an omelet, and actually tasted the food. I didn't open my banking app in fear. I didn't flinch when my phone buzzed. I just lived. I started freelancing, contract work at first. Nothing glamorous, but steady. Then I landed a gig for a fintech startup that liked how I handled unexpected disruption in my personal finances. Yes, they saw the gap in my resume and asked. Within a month, I was making enough to cover rent again. No luxuries, no takeout, but also no blood-sucking vacations draining my account. I got a library card. I went to the gym. I slept through the night. That was my luxury, peace. But of course, they didn't stay quiet forever. 3 weeks after I cut them off, my sister cracked first. A random Wednesday, 3:47 p.m. She sent a voice note. "Hey, look, I just think we need to clear the air. Everyone's still a bit shaken after the whole thing. But you went too far. You know that, right?" I didn't reply. So she followed up with the kicker. "Dad's thinking of selling the car. Mom's canceling her yoga membership. We're all making sacrifices. Maybe it's time you grow up too." I nearly dropped my phone from laughing. Sell the car? Cancel yoga? Meanwhile, I'd been eating tuna for 2 weeks and counting coins for bus fare. They weren't making sacrifices. They were tasting accountability for the first time. Next day, Mom called. I let it go to voicemail. She left 2 messages. The first one was predictable. "We didn't raise you to be cruel." The second one, that one hit different. "Your father might need surgery next quarter. We thought you'd want to know." Surgery? That's when I knew they were pulling out the big guns. Health guilt. The nuclear option of family manipulation. They were losing grip. So they went full tilt. But this time, I didn't bite. I'd spent too many years jumping every time they rang a financial alarm. This time, I watched the fire and kept walking. And here's where it gets wild. 2 months after the island incident, they tried to apply for a joint credit card using my social security number. I got the fraud alert at 10 a.m. while making coffee. My hand didn't even shake. I called the bank, shut it down, and reported the attempt. Later that night, Dad texted, "You're being ridiculous. We only tried because we thought you'd approve eventually." He said it like it was a favor, like identity theft was a casual Monday. That was the last straw. I wrote back, "Let me be clear. You will never use my name, my credit, or my accounts again. If I see one more attempt, I will press charges. This is not emotional anymore. This is legal." No reply, but I knew they saw it. And that's when something cracked. Week 10 post cutoff. I got a message from an unfamiliar number. Turns out, it was my cousin Tara. We hadn't talked in years. She was always quiet at family events, keeping her head down. But now, she had stories. Turns out, I wasn't the first they'd drained, just the most consistent. Apparently, they'd borrowed money from two other relatives for investment purposes that never materialized. They even borrowed against grandma's life insurance policy years ago. Nobody ever talked about it. Everyone just let it go. Until me. Tara said, honestly, you snapping woke the rest of us up. You gave them a consequence nobody else ever had the guts to. That hit me hard. For the first time in my life, someone in my family called me brave. Not the smart one. Not the helpful one. Not the quiet one. Brave. And here's the twist nobody saw coming. The Canary Island Resort? After my credit card got declined and the payment failed, they reported it to collections. I got a call from the manager. She was annoyed, professional, and very clear. Apparently, my mom tried to argue that the charges were a gift from me, that I'd approved everything, that they had my verbal consent. But when the resort contacted the bank for evidence and saw the block history, email trail, and credit freezes, they flagged the whole thing. Long story short, my parents were banned from that property and two partner resorts. My name? Cleared. Their dream vacation spot? Gone. Forever. I know what you're thinking. Was it worth it? Losing contact with my whole family over a few $1,000s? I'll put it this way. It wasn't about the money. It was about the pattern. They saw me not as a person, but as a resource. And the second I shut down the tap, they panicked. Not because they missed me, but because they missed the benefits. That was all I needed to know. These days, my fridge is never full, but it's mine. My phone is quiet, but it's peaceful. And my bank account? Still humble, but stable. For the first time in my adult life, my balance isn't just in dollars. It's in dignity. It's been 5 months since I cut them off. 5 months since I became the villain in a family story I didn't even write. And you know what? I've never felt more alive. People talk about freedom like it's a plane ticket or a passport stamp. But real freedom? It's the moment you realize you don't owe anyone your silence just because they share your last name. They said I betrayed them. They said I turned my back on the ones who raised me. But let me tell you something. The ones who raise you don't weaponize guilt. They don't steal your future while calling it love. They don't leave you broke and bleeding while they sip wine in a hammock. No, the ones who raise you protect you. The ones who love you don't leave you empty. So when they painted me as the selfish one, the cold one, the ungrateful son, fine, let them. Because I finally figured it out. I was never part of their family. I was part of their budget. They didn't lose a son. They lost their credit line. And once you see that truth, you can't unsee it. Here's what nobody tells you about walking away. At first, it hurts like hell. You second-guess everything. You stare at your phone, half wishing for an apology, half dreading the next guilt trap. You sit in silence that used to be filled with obligation and wonder if you did the right thing. But then something shifts. You start sleeping better. You start thinking clearly. You start remembering what peace sounds like. It's slow. It's quiet. But when it comes, God, it's powerful. And here's the irony. The more peace I found, the more their world cracked without me. A few weeks ago, I got a letter. Not a text. Not an email. An actual letter. Handwritten. From my aunt, Dad's sister. We hadn't spoken in years. It started like this. I heard what happened. And I just wanted to say, you did what the rest of us were too afraid to do. She went on to tell me stories. Stories about them. How they'd borrowed money from nearly everyone in the family. How they'd used illness and tears and promises to pull cash from every direction, leaving burned bridges in their wake. But nobody ever stood up. Until me. And at the end of the letter, she wrote one line I'll never forget. They taught you how to survive. But you taught the rest of us how to say enough. I sat there, reading that sentence again and again. And for the first time in my life, I cried for myself. Not from pain. Not from guilt. But from finally feeling seen. Now, I live differently. I don't mean like I changed my number and moved to Bali. I mean I've reclaimed my air. I stop working when my shift ends. I take walks without checking for messages. I look at the price tag for me, not for what someone else might demand. My calendar used to be full of other people's emergencies. Now it's full of nothing, and that nothing? It's mine. I go to cafes and drink the coffee slowly. I read books that don't teach anything, just because they're weird or beautiful. I'm learning to exist without performing usefulness to anyone. That's the revolution. And what's next? Maybe I'll move cities. Start over completely. Maybe I'll start writing. Maybe I'll go back to school. Maybe I'll invest in my life the way I used to invest in theirs. I've been building a document titled Project Rebuild. Not dramatic, just honest. It has tabs like Emergency Fund, finally growing, Skills to learn, coding, graphic design, digital marketing, people to stay close to, a list of 3 names. That's it. Real ones. Things I'll never do again. Lend money without a contract. Apologize for saying no. Confuse guilt with love. The last one is in bold. A few nights ago, I had a dream. I was standing in my old childhood living room. Same furniture, same smell, except I was taller, older, stronger. My mom was at the table, going through my bank statements. My dad was waving a bill in my face, asking why I hadn't paid it yet. And my sister was on the couch, scrolling, saying, "You used to care." In the dream, I didn't say anything. I just picked up a pair of scissors and cut a single cord on the wall. The lights went out. They vanished. I woke up smiling. So if you're reading this wondering if it's worth it, if walking away will break you, here's my answer. Let it break you. Let it break the version of you that tolerated everything. Let it break the version of you that mistook silence for love. Let it break the version of you that thought being needed was the same as being valued. And when the dust clears, build something better. Build you. Because they'll never admit it. But the moment you said no was the moment they lost their power. And you? You just became unstoppable.